Let's bring in former New York City mayor, former attorney for President Trump, friend of mine personally, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, no surprises. We had you on a couple of weeks ago, and we expected a heavily redacted document.
Maybe not quite that bad.
What was?
I thought they could do a better job than that, I'll tell you.
So what about this? What if, as Alina just said, they were looking for some sort of Espionage Act violations? I'm telling you, I was there when Hillary was bleach bidding her servers and banging her Blackberries. That seems like more espionage crimes than anything Trump's done here.
All Trump did actually is put it in a place that they approved. The last communication before they raided his house was about 8 weeks before, or six weeks before, and the agent said, "Will you please put it in such and such an area and make sure that it's safe?" So the FBI was fully aware of where it was. They had already gotten 15 boxes by subpoena without having to go through fascist tactics like this.
Yeah, but so Mr. Mayor, they basically said, hey, Trump, can you put those boxes in a place, or we'll take our agents a lot of time to find once we raid your compound.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, Mayor, I want to ask you this. Joe Biden said on camera yesterday, when asked if he had any advance warning of the raid, he said no, zero, held up the zero sign, no, zero. Do you believe him?
Of course I don't believe him. Or he forgot, it could be he forgot. The reality is they were all classified by him. Doesn't he remember that?
Yeah.
We found that out 2 days ago. Remember, he classified all those documents. How he could do that without ever seeing them, I don't know. How he could do it without remembering it, I don't know.
Well, do you think
but
he got
the fact that the president declassified it.
Yeah, but do you think he got an advance warning, advance that they were going to raid Donald Trump? Of course he did, right? I mean, let's be honest. What the FBI did it and didn't tell Attorney General Merrick Garland. Garland didn't tell the White House that they're going to raid Trump's compound. Come on.
Well, there's no way they didn't tell Biden or whoever is deciding for Biden.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
So maybe they called Obama.
I'm not sure what they tell the demented old man in the White House.
You hear that, everybody? Giuliani thinks that Biden's a demented old man.
Tell Obama, this is Biden.
That must tell you something right there. And I didn't like Giuliani at first either, to be honest, but now I'm starting to like him.
Mr. Mayor, take a listen to this soundbite from Mark Zuckerberg being grilled on Joe Rogan, and some things came out that shocked a lot of the world. Listen.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high
He's a
alert.
fucking android. You see him? You see his lizard eyes, everybody?
2016 election.
Look at Lizard.
On notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of
A shape-shifting lizard. You see that?
That's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
Mr. Mayor, since when does the FBI tell a private...
Oh my God, he's got lizard eyes.
What to publish and what not to publish? I mean...
That fucker's a robotic lizard.
National security information.
That's a good point. Wow.
I mean, when did they do that?
That's a very, very good point. National security, whether or not...
FBI kept Hunter Biden's laptop buried. Wow. So Biden pretty much is trying to keep his son from getting in trouble because maybe his laptop has incriminating and has lists of who's who and who's doing what. So the FBI is trying to bury this shit so that way it can't make it public and we know the truth. It's just like Epstein being quote unquote hung in his cell that he committed suicide. That's a bunch of bullshit. You know damn well they killed him off.
Make sure that what he had was legitimate. And then there was a big dump. And he censored it. And you know what that indicates? The government was part of that. That makes all this First Amendment stuff very different. One of the ways they get out of the First Amendment is they say these are private companies. But the minute the government's conspiring like that, it's the government violating First Amendment rights.
Amazing. The FBI reaches out to Zuckerberg, and Facebook goes ahead and throttles back the story. Twitter went even further and just completely pulled the story.
You know, actually, Miranda Devine called me before, and corrected that. She said that Facebook was the first. Twitter followed Facebook.
Yeah, but Twitter, my
He's lying about that.
Twitter went a little bit further. Mr. Mayor, always good having you on. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Thank you.
Huh. Guess I got a live feed.
Everything.
There's no obligation or upfront cost. Call today or visit idealagent.com.
Your personal information gets exposed to
What
so
does that say?
might as well be hanging in a museum.
You are.
Everyday activities like online shopping, banking,
McCartney is as lame as Joe.
exposure information and make it dangerously
Okay. Who's this Trump lost? Laughing out loud.
3 seconds.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name. Felt really devastating because I had
Oh crap. I keep hitting the wrong buttons. I don't know why. I see a stupid remote.
no control.
But protecting your identity can't be easy with LifeLock. LifeLock monitors threats to your identity, and if an issue is detected, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens,
Biden rest in Military is 18% of federal spending. The
including reimbursement.
test is social programs. The rest is social programs.
Identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/get25 and use promo code GET25 to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Just a pea-sized amount of Lumi applied between your butt cheeks like this. I will demonstrate. Just kidding, I won't. Like this. We put Lumi to the test and compared it to a shower. 12 hours after a shower with soap and water, the average crotch has an odor score of 5 to 6 out of 10. 12
What the
hours after a
hell?
shower and applying Lumi, you're at a 0 out of 10. No odor all day. I'm not a mathematician, but I think it means that Lumi is infinitely more effective than a shower alone. So just take a shower or shower with Lumi and be 0 out of 10.
I think a shower is still better, everybody.
I'm going to CashNetUSA.com, and if approved, we can have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
This is it. There's just one day left to enter to win big from Publishers Clearinghouse on August 31st. Win $5 grand a week for your life. Then after that, someone you choose gets $5 grand a week for their life.
You gotta be in it to win it.
$5,000 a week forever. Hurry, enter now at PCH.com.
I believe I found in the reading of The Catcher in the Rye a small anchor that even if I was still pulled around, I wasn't pulled around as fast.
Published in 1951, J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye tells the story of teenager Holden Caulfield.
Okay.
Let's bring in former New York City Mayor, former attorney for President Trump, friend of mine personally, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor,
I saw that
no
one.
surprises. We had you on a couple of.
Huh. Damn, I can't. Hang on, everybody. I gotta. See if I can. Invasion. Or actually, these nut jobs are. It covers a true crisis or something.
Weeks ago, and we expected a help.
There we go. Now I can be able to.
On Thursday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed an executive order allowing the Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, and the Texas National Guard to arrest and return illegal migrants to the border. Abbott
Good.
said in a statement, quote, while President Biden refuses to do his job and enforce the immigration laws enacted by Congress, the state of Texas is once again stepping up and taking unprecedented action to protect Americans and secure our southern border.
Good.
Biden's border czar, or at least she was at some point, VP Kamala Harris, speaking with Face the Nation over the weekend, was asked about Abbott and his attempt to actually secure his state from all of this mayhem, and here is her arrogant response.
I would suggest that so-called leaders focus on solutions instead of attacks if they really are concerned about a problem.
Oh my God.
And
She's a shut her
that
pie
is
hole.
on the issue of immigration, passing a pathway for citizenship. And that's
That's
where
all
I
she
think
does,
everyone
everybody.
should be focused. If they're actually concerned about solutions instead of flame throwing.
Fucking bitch.
Worst VP in history? Gotta be up there. I mean, I don't know that many VPs, but she's gotta be one of the worst. Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson joins us now to talk about this. Also the author of Holding the Line, a lifetime of defending democracy and American values. Congressman, thank you for coming on. Your response to Kamala Harris?
Well, Rob, I can't decide who's a bigger embarrassment right now, President Biden or this birthing person that is our vice president right now, Kamala Harris. She's done absolutely nothing to control what's happening at the border. Governor Abbott, the counties down in the south, the state of Texas is doing everything we can to stop what's happening on our southern border, not just for the sake of Texas, but for the sake of this country. We're spending tons and tons of Texas taxpayer dollars down there doing the job of the federal government. And we're trying to stop the massive amount of drugs that are crossing our border, the fentanyl, the methamphetamine, the heroin, the cocaine, that's destroying an entire generation of our kids right now. The leading cause of death between 18 and 40 years old of the males in this country right now is drug overdose, thanks to Joe Biden. And it's not just his inability to stop what's happening, but he's actually causing it. They've put incentives in place to cause what's happening down there. The cartel now controls our border, and they have free reign of our southern border, and this is the result. So it's absolutely disgusting, and I just can't tell you how outraged people in Texas are right now with this administration regarding our border.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, the deaths, they don't matter. Nothing compares to rich, white, Ivy League virtue signaling, and that's the kind of policies that this country needs. That's there's no consequence to that. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect example. You were talking earlier about this Latinx thing that the First Lady supposedly attended today for education. I mean, Rob, I grew up in a community that was almost 60% Hispanic. I can tell you right now that Hispanic people in this country are no more excited about the schools going out and try to chemically castrate and physically mutilate their young boys and make them girls and give mastectomies to their girls and make them boys than any other race in this country. The Biden administration is so out of touch with what people in this country want and need, and the whole party is being, or the entire administration is being driven by this far left, progressive, radical, just nut jobs that are driving this country right now. I can't believe it's actually happening.
They're going to learn a big lesson in November when they all go out and vote for you. That's what's going to be funny.
Yes, they are.
Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
See you.
Try to find some more
Jason said be sure to tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, kicking off their week-long deep dive into what several Texas counties are calling the invasion at our southern border. Joined now by the host of Rob Schmidt tonight, Rob Schmidt, live here in the studio. Rob, always a pleasure to see you and have you here at least in before noon. I don't know how that happened.
I come in early for this.
Yeah. You know, good to see you too. That's something that Emma pointed out. Newsmax has been on top of this story since day one, heavily. And Jason Jones has been embedded with Texas DPS. I'm curious to know, with your special tonight, what's going to be different that you're going to be offering the viewers that we haven't seen before?
Oh, he's going to have access that nobody gets. He's going to be with DPS. He's going to be in the helicopters with them. I mean, tonight they're going to dive into basically just the staggering amount of high-speed chases that these Border Patrol officers are dealing with all the time. It's just standard issue. Every day we're going to have several high-speed chases of migrants being smuggled in, running from them in police in cars or trucks. I mean, we've seen the stories of people dying in these accidents. It is just standard issue. They have created such tremendous pain and misery at this border, and they've created such a crisis intentionally And that's really what people need to remember. As you see this story every day, it's easy for this to become the story that just goes in the background, right? I mean, even for us, it's like when you have a story that happens every single day, it's just like inner city crime. The media starts to just ignore it. But this is intentionally inflicted. It's causing tremendous amounts of pain, and it's all being done for a political purpose. And that's the saddest part of it. I mean, when Biden during that debate, when Biden said, surge the border, I mean, the most irresponsible foreign policy we've seen on so many different fronts from this unbelievably incompetent administration. And we see it play out, and you're going to have great access to it tonight with video that you've never seen before.
Yeah, it's dangerous what's happening at our southern border. Of course, and Jason was previewing it there, you've got young children who are being essentially trafficked across the border there. No concern about their well-being. And then, of course, the Border Patrol agents now being forced to take action into their own hands. We heard this declaration of an invasion as well, and now you're bringing them back, essentially, to the ports of entry.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, think about how much money the cartels are making off the Biden administration. I mean, there is no bigger supporter of Joe Biden's administration than cartels, than Mexican cartels, Central American cartels, gangs. These people are making an absolute fortune off of this. They're bringing people in. I mean, you've seen the numbers of sexual assaults of the people they bring up. Think of all the pain and misery they're creating by giving people this oasis, that there is this great place that they can come to the north, that they can escape everything. And it's pain that's inflicted on us. They get hurt, and then we get hurt in the outside.
Talk to me about this term invasion. When you hear that term being thrown out like that, it causes you to pause for a second and really say, what is happening in these Texas counties? Some of these counties are already declaring that it hasn't happened in American history, from what I understand, pushing Governor Abbott to take some sort of action. Why do you think that is, that term invasion is being used at this point by several counties?
I think it's the last shot that they have, because they're trying to dismantle every kind of common sense piece of border policy this country has ever had. And as they continue to do that, they have to take any, I mean, and it is an invasion. Imagine if you lived in a town, I mean, some of these border towns have 500 people in them. Imagine you live in a town with 500 people and 1,000 illegal crossers come into your town every single day and have to be arrested. And your police are a part of that process. I mean, that is an invasion. I mean, can you fathom what that's like? I mean, look, these border towns right on the border are small. These are small towns, and you have hundreds of thousands of people moving through in some of these select areas, and in the Rio Grande and in that area. I mean, it's staggering. It is an invasion.
Yeah, and of course we're left wondering, where's the President of the United States? Where's the Vice President as well? Considering this is happening, the alarm bells have been sounding.
The president that wanted strict border control 15 years ago, who we all know is not in charge. I mean, there are some very dark forces that work inside this administration behind the scenes that want to see the dismantling, I think, of this first world country, that want to see equity throughout the world. And I think it begins with, how do we make the United States weaker? And they think that other countries will come up stronger if you can make us weaker, if you can bring people in from all these different places. It will create an equity. These people despise seeing a vibrant, healthy America with a secure border, wealthy, making money, people living good lives. It pisses them off because they see the rest of the world not doing as well, and this is their way of dismantling all that. That's the open border movement. That's what these Klaus Schwab types, that's what they want. That's what these Soros types want. They're full of guilt. They have too much money, and this is their dream for the perfect rainbow world of the future.
I think we've got about 40 seconds. Yeah. Final push for folks watching tonight to tune in 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I know tonight will be a big one for you.
It's a good one, yeah. And then you've got also today, I think you've got Jill Biden, who's the president's wife's going to be down at the border.
So she's going to Texas.
And she's going for a Latinx. You know, it's like the most out of touch. I mean, with all of these problems, I mean, they're turning these districts red as fast as they can. And she's going to go down there and speak at a Latinx conference. Ask any Hispanic person you know what they think about that phrase. I mean, that's how out of touch the Biden administration is. They're pandering to about 10% of it, 10% of that population. And you're going to see there's going to be a huge groundswell for Republicans in that community coming up.
Fucking max sheep. Look at all those sheep.
Tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
They think they're doing the right thing by wearing a COVID mask, but yet they want to come into the country like illegally. Like, what the hell, you know? Biden's just trying to buy their votes, and that's all he's trying to do. He's just trying to get them to come in so that way, you know, he can buy their votes. It's all political bullshit. Let me try to find some more here. Gotta like that one too.
The child
Ugh.
I want to be somebody. Nobody ever let me be anybody. I couldn't be anybody. I failed at everything. Please, I want this. I want this so bad, so bad. The spiritual dichotomy, the devil, God, and the inner dichotomy, the child and the man.
Welcome back to the Countdown. Mike Carter. We're getting closer to our number one story on the countdown, but first, story number 4. The crisis is real, and border states are giving New York and D.C. a taste of the policies they've advocated for. This week, the convoys of buses carrying migrants from Texas to New York City marked the most to ever arrive in one day. 5 buses reaching the Big Apple on Wednesday. City officials say the latest group of buses transported carried nearly 240 illegal migrants. Since April, Texas's Governor Greg Abbott says, well, it's transported over 800 illegal border crossers to New York City on at least 15 buses. Eric Adams, the mayor of the city, would argue it's much more than that. Let's bring in retired senior special agent with the INS, Michael Cutler, to discuss. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday night. Large groups of illegal migrants. Appreciate you joining us. Large groups of illegal migrants are now being spread across this country. They have been for some time now, but we know in New York and D.C. in particular, that's not including the ones who find their own way north of the border by themselves. How long can the Biden administration get away with their base just trusting their stance on immigration? It doesn't seem to be working out right now.
It's gonna make my area bad now, everybody, because they're gonna fucking try to invade our services and everything, and then take over, like what we need and what we deserve. And they're going to try to apply for all sorts of services and get free money. Fuck them.
New York, for example, hits the trifecta. The Canadian border at the top of New York State. We've got seaports. We have international airports. In fact, in 2016, the Pew Research Center in 2018 published a report that said in 2016, New York City had the greatest number of illegal aliens over any city in the entire country, over 1.1 million, and I think that's a very low number. I think it's much higher. So what the governor of Texas is doing is the same as sending a couple of truckloads of sand to the beach. The outrage is artificial.
Tired of these fucking sheep.
Fighting the Republicans who are trying to
look at the Port Authority bus terminal there.
And enforce the immigration laws.
But we're going to pile into that SUV. The hell?
Testimony. What's not being talked about is that there have been congressional hearings.
Yeah, like 4 or 5, 6 of them piling into the back of this SUV. What the hell?
America, working with the cartels to move people and narcotics in record levels into the country, including undoubtedly sleeper agents.
Yep.
So when you look at what's going on, and the idea of hiring more Border Patrol agents, I'll tell you what they really need to hire is more ICE agents. We only have about 6,000 ICE agents to the entire country, and most of them, especially under Biden, aren't doing immigration work. Realize that all the Border Patrol does is interdiction. Once aliens get past the border, nothing happens. We have no one to look for them, no one to conduct the fraud investigations. By the way, immigration fraud, people lying on applications for asylum, citizenship, and so forth, whereas identified by the 9/11 Commission as the key method of entry and embedding for terrorists. If you talk about the border wall, and by the way, the border wall was never designed to stop anyone from entering. It doesn't block ports of entry. It's the same as the cattle runs that guides passengers to the next TSA agent at the airport. No rational person would get on board an airplane if they saw people sneaking past TSA to get on that same plane, yet we're living with millions of people who evaded a very similar vetting process. And the people that oppose the border wall lie about it being a wall of hate. They also say, well, you know what, if you build a 12-foot wall, the illegals will come with 15-foot ladders. They don't need a 15-foot ladder. All they need to do is get a green card. Think about that. So we have the IRS gearing up to go after Americans who make mistakes on tax returns, but Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of Homeland Security, God help us, has stated blatantly that if people lie on applications for U.S. citizenship, Homeland Surrender, which is what I've come to call DHS, will take no action. And realize that when our guys raided bin Laden's compound and seized his library, They found a copy of the 9/11 Commission report, and they also found an application for U.S. citizenship. We've had numerous terrorists acquire U.S. citizenship through fraud. So with 2 passports, they alternate the passports. They can easily travel around the world and gain access to government and corporate office buildings in the United States and get on board airplanes. The entire immigration system lacks integrity because for far too long, politicians on both sides of the aisle have purposely ignored interior enforcement, because if you do interior enforcement effectively, you will not only arrest illegal aliens, you will also figure out who the crooked employers are and who the crooked attorneys are who are facilitating conspiracies to get green cards for criminals and terrorists.
Yeah.
So it's about a lot more than just the Border Patrol. I think it's important for your audience to realize that.
Definitely. Michael Cotler, I appreciate it. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for covering it.
That guy said it very well, everybody. Like, for real. He had said it very, very well. Because I can't explain things very well. I'm just not able to articulate it. But yeah, but the way he articulated it and said it, he is absolutely right. And it feels right too. Let's try to see if I can make sure that it played right.
Well, welcome back to...
Gotta screenshot that one too. So yeah, like I said, by them being bussed in here in the DC area, they're all these illegals are going to be messing up our local social services, and it's going to be harder to you know, to get any kind of real help. You know, us that need the real help. I mean, I can't get any monetary like donations coming in, trying to buy myself an RV so I can get the fuck out of this apartment. But you know, but yet these illegals can get anything they want. It's just not for everybody, and that's what's pissing me off the most. But then again, with this heat too, though, it's making it real bad. You know, I mean, I can't really go out and do much. Wish I could.
just like a routine. Get up, flow, sip, surf, hike, sip, sunset, do it all over again.
Please do not drink that shit, everybody. It's stupid.
Distinct lines of attack have already formed against President Biden's student debt relief plan. One challenges the basic fairness and the efficacy of the policy, suggesting it might not have the desired impacts on the U.S. economy. The other line of attack is legal, as the president's plan is expected to come under sharp legal challenge. The president announced on Wednesday that up to $10,000 in student debt would be erased for Americans earning under $125,000 a year, couples twice those figures. Pell Grant recipients would receive up to $20,000 in forgiveness, and repayments suspended yet again through the end of the year would be capped at 5% of an individual's disposable income. The administration released an opinion from the Justice Department Wednesday that determined the president possesses, quote, sweeping authority to erase student debt under the terms of a 2003 statute called the HEROES Act. Enacted at the height of the War on Terror, the law empowered the Education Secretary to waive student financial aid rules during times of emergency. And President Trump's declaration of emergency for the coronavirus remains in effect. Defending the policy side of the announcement yesterday was a familiar face from the Obama era, domestic policy advisor Susan Rice, who has taken a decidedly less public but still highly influential role.
Stupid sheep-looking motherfuckers.
Reporters asked Ambassador Rice about the basic fairness of forgiving so much student debt, especially for those who did pay their debt back, or those who forswore higher education because of the debt it would have inflicted on them.
Republicans didn't complain when certain small businesses during the pandemic got extraordinary financial relief and without having to pay back those loans. But when some businesses needed it and other businesses didn't need it. This is the same principle. Yes, those who have paid their loans back deserve to be credited. That's fantastic. That doesn't mean that because some were able to do so, nobody should help those who weren't. By that logic, we wouldn't help anybody in this country.
She's a retard.
Expect a readout of a secure call between President Biden
She's a fucking retard.
Volodymyr Zelensky. Then in the 3 o'clock hour Eastern Time, President Biden will be leaving the White House for nearby Montgomery County, Maryland, where he'll take part in a reception and benefit for the Democratic National Committee.
Oh my god, he was coming here to fucking Montgomery County? Screw that bastard. Piece of shit. Stay the fuck out of our county. He's not wanted. Did you know he was coming here to Montgomery County?
Did you know there's an app that rewards you for your time all the time? It's called Coin.
In a few hours, we should have our very first look at that redacted affidavit. We thought it could happen yesterday. The judge punted. It will happen at noon today. This all going back to that raid on Mar-a-Lago 18 days ago. Joining us now once again to break down what we can expect today is civil rights attorney, former prosecutor, and Newsmax contributor Amir Benno. Amir, good to see you. Here we go again, my friend. What are you expecting to see today when we do finally get this affidavit?
I think it's going to be a big disappointment, Rob. I think it's going to be highly redacted, and the information that most Americans want to see, which is what's the evidence of probable cause. Did the government reveal or did they omit certain information about President Trump's prior cooperation? Did they omit evidence about the fact that the FBI may have had dual motives? They may have, they're conducting other investigations into President Trump aside from these records. Those things are not going to be visible to the ordinary American, unfortunately.
Amir, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, with some really interesting sound. This will be everywhere today and throughout the weekend, but he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said that the FBI told him just prior to the 2020 election that there was going to be some story from Russia, Russian disinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop. Take a listen to what Mark Zuckerberg says happened.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda 2016 election, we have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
Wow. So he's admitting to it. They suppressed the story. They suppressed the story deliberately to try to swing the election in Joe Biden's favor. He's saying they didn't realize what they were doing. They were trusting the FBI. Amir, we're 74 days away from really important midterm elections. 18 days ago, the FBI raids the former president's house. Are they doing it again? Is the FBI all politics?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it has been, as Chuck Grassley said, infected. Politically infected and completely lost the trust of the American people for, their subterfuge when it comes to the Biden laptop. Most recently, you have two individuals who were compelled to plead guilty to trafficking, they call it trafficking, Ashley Biden's diary, facing 5 years in prison for each of them. But meanwhile, somebody like Hunter Biden, who actually...
If you want to come sit down, you can. I'll just pause it. So what do you think? You think Zuckerberg's actually trying to do the right thing or what?
I don't know.
Well, you heard what he said, right?
No.
Oh. Because that's my interpretation. I mean, I don't know.
Podcast. And he said that the FBI told him just prior to the 2020 election that there was going to be some story from Russia, Russian disinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop. Take a listen to what Mark Zuckerberg says happened.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
Wow.
What do you think?
I'm not paying attention to it, so I don't know what they're talking about.
You didn't hear what he said?
No.
Just take a listen. I just want to see what you think.
I really don't care. That's why.
Take a listen to
Just
what Mark
please.
Zuckerberg says happened.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
Wow. So he's admitting to it. They
Joe
suppressed
Biden's son's over in Russia when all this shit. They're part of that. That's how all this shit happened.
No, but do you think Mark is trying to do the right thing by, or do you think he's? Because
He's trying to make himself look good. He's part of it.
I just don't like him, to be honest. Ever since they started doing that whole, fact-finding thing and everything in 2020, that just, I can't stand him anymore. But it sounds like he was trying to say the right thing, though.
Chuck Grassley said, infected, politically infected, and completely lost the trust of the American people for, their subterfuge when it comes to the Biden laptop. Most recently, you have two individuals who were compelled to plead guilty to trafficking, they call it trafficking, Ashley Biden's diary, facing 5 years in prison for each of them. But meanwhile, somebody like Hunter Biden, who actually did traffic human beings for sex across state lines, gets a free ride on Air Force One. It's a complete double standard. They have a long way to go to regain the American people's trust.
Yeah, and the laptop, there's some parts that are the photos of Hunter Biden doing crack with strippers and hookers and all that kind of stuff. Fine, but the real question is kickbacks to Joe Biden, the big guy. That's what's in question here when it comes to the Hunter Biden laptop. Amir.
Well, hey, Rob, I'll just say on that, sure. People shouldn't forget the fact that President Trump was impeached because he wanted the Ukrainian president to look into some of those criminal doings of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, which was his prerogative as a president. But when Joe Biden decides, hey, I'm going to, use the FBI to raid the home of the former president to get dirt on somebody who's going to be my opponent, most likely, in an upcoming election.
No, totally.
Nobody on the left does anything.
Amir, can I just about 10 seconds? Harvey Weinstein, you former Manhattan assistant district attorney. Harvey Weinstein's got an appeal. If he wins this, is he out of jail?
Oh my God, he looks like shit.
The Court of Appeals is going to hear his case case. They don't hear every case. That's the highest court in New York. So they're going to hear it. There are some legal issues there about whether or not they sat a juror who might have had been predisposed against him. Some other legal issues. So no, it doesn't mean that. And by the way, he's facing prosecution in California for other sexual crimes. So I don't think he's going to see freedom anytime soon.
Okay, thanks for clearing
I
that
sure
up.
hope not.
When I heard that, I was like, oh boy.
Piece of
he's
shit.
gonna get out of jail. Okay, Amir Benno, have a great weekend. We'll do it again next week. Thank you.
You too, Rob. Thanks.
So then pretty much Biden is trying to retaliate against Trump then.
He's been trying to do that for a minute since he's been in the White House.
Yeah, he definitely got his way, didn't he? Using the FBI to do his fucking dirty work, you know? That piece of shit. Wait, what? Damn commercials.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
All right, joining us now, we have Arizona
Okay.
Congressman and Border Security.
But she's trying to ruin America too, so why is it sound like she's trying to go against them? You see what they're trying to do? They're basically trying to do a confusion campaign, trying to confuse people, right? Because 1 minute she's like trying to destroy us, now she's trying to be against them, right? What the fuck?
Pelosi, sometimes these types of feelings she expresses are what I would say fluid. She should go back and say, well, you know, I was right then, I'm right now, and we're going to have to come in and have hearings and take congressional action on this, whether we're going to approve such a thing or not, especially since it's going to cost bare minimum $330 billion. And in my estimation, in looking at it, probably in excess of $1 trillion.
Yeah, I was thinking $1 trillion.
Through this program. And, you know, it's going to impact so many people because it's $125,000 for a single person, but $250,000 for a household. So this is just a hugely disproportionate bailout, quite frankly. And I'm hoping she'll come back. We're pleading with her to do it. We're urging her to do it. And actually, we're demanding that she do it.
Yeah, and Congressman, you look at the budgetary cost and the distributional impact of student loan forgiveness that was released by the Penn Wharton budget model. They estimate that forgiving federal college student debt will cost between $300 billion and $980 billion over a 10-year budget window. Again, going back and stipulating that that's dependent on the program details. But who could possibly be for this when this gets passed on to taxpayers?
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense because
People are going to pay it anyways.
Exactly right.
You know what I mean? They're not going to care. They're going to be like, it's just a few cents a month. And that's why people, and that's a problem with with a lot of people. They just don't care.
It's going to be added to the structural
They want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And that's the kind of people that don't belong in this fucking country.
left that want to increase taxes on everybody else to pay
If people stand for what's right and they fight for it, then it'll be a better place.
that is going to be facing the imminent bankruptcy of the United States of America. They're going to have to decide how they're going to pick this up. So this is just another modern monetary theory policy of Joe Biden and the leftists in Congress.
Even the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, they weighed in on this and that they said broad student debt cancellation would actually undermine the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act. So how are Democrats doing the math here by saying that the Inflation Reduction Act is going to lower the deficit by around $300 billion, yet this is clearly canceling a lot of that out?
Yeah, it doesn't pencil out even on the back of an envelope quite.
Biden's a fascist motherfucker, but yeah, he's calling Trump supporters a semi-fascist. He should be looking at himself, everybody.
So I never bought the IRA's.
He just contradicted himself right there.
Reduction portion of that bill. I don't think that's real. And so when you add this into that, you're going to actually add to inflationary pressure. And you can't get around it. There's no gimmicking this. Like the administration says, well, an 8.5% inflation rate is 0% inflation because it's down 0.5 point. No, it's still 8.5% over last year. So you can gimmick this thing all you want, you can say all you want, but Americans are not dummies. They understand this is going to add pressure to high cost and devalue the currency, which is what causes inflation.
That makes sense, right?
All right, so the FBI, or the affidavit that's led to the FBI raid.
Holy cow.
Sort of released.
Yeah, as you can see here on the screen.
Wow.
Right there.
There's some big words like the that are unredacted. It's unbelievable. And they think this made their case better. This has made it worse off.
Well, for more on this, we're going to be joined by constitutional law attorney and former legal counsel to President Trump, Jenna Ellis. Jenna, I know you're going to have your comments, especially after what Carl just said, but Trump requested a special master to review those documents that were taken by the FBI. Before we really get into it, can you explain what his reason is for doing this?
No, this is all about putting the documents into the hands of a third party that's neutral rather than the government supervising itself. This is an entirely appropriate request. President Trump was right to ask for that, and so this is a tentative ruling from the judge in this case, and he's indicated that he will appoint a special master, and importantly, then the FBI would also have to show whether or not they had a taint team in place that has separated the documents from law enforcement so that if there were any privileged documents, that those aren't in the hands of anyone who might be prosecuting this case further if the FBI decides to go that route, or the DOJ.
Well, Jenna, I don't mean to blow up our off-air conversation, but you and I just talked about. We had Maggie on, and she made some points that I happen to disagree with. And one of the things, and we're going to let her respond in the next hour, but she looks at this through the prism, and some Americans do too, that the government wanted those documents back. Why didn't Trump give it to him? And I look at this through the prism of those documents, if he's saying they're his, maybe they're his and the government's wrong.
Yeah, well, I had to text you because Maggie and I just said, okay, this lady has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. She's a little confused about everything. Well, the American people aren't confused here. We're all seeing that the FBI and the Democrats and everyone on the left has been targeting President Trump for the last 6 years. This is just the next thing. I mean, come on. The President Trump set up himself to get raided by the FBI just as an appeal to his base. That's absurd. And so looking at the totality of what has gone on for the last 6 years, no reasonable person would not step back and say, this is yet another next thing in the line of what the Democrats are targeting President Trump with. And look, we're not hearing anything about January 6th anymore. The timing of this is so suspicious because right after Liz Cheney loses her primary and everything about the January 6th committee is going away, now this raid happens, and this is the next mantra, this is the next thing that Eric Swalwell is tweeting saying the walls are closing in.
Sure.
Jenna, two things here. In the beginning, you said that the special counsel will be neutral. I think that's really important to note because a neutral party here could help bring back trust and maybe unconfuse.
But who's neutral now?
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that why would somebody want to be targeted? That's a really good question. Nobody's going to say, yeah, let me invite an investigation and go through all of this headache and this hassle here. Right. But going off of what Maggie said, what Carl just reiterated, is there's this idea of, well, why didn't Trump give back those boxes and give back that information? Can you explain maybe what was going on with the inner workings to why Trump had them and why he didn't just go, here you go, take it back?
Well, he's been in discussion discussion, he and his lawyers, with the National Archives apparently for the last several months. And, you know, a president is entitled to keep some of his own documentation. And so what the National Archives thinks that they need to have secured in a different location. I mean, this ultimately comes down to a property dispute rather than anything criminal. And that's why, going off on this redacted affidavit, what we have seen, which, you know, most of the section on probable cause is redacted out, but what we can see, there's no basis here that the totality of the circumstances, a reasonable person, based on the information that was apparently known to the affiant at the time, would have provided a reasonable or legal basis to say that a crime had been committed here. I mean, this is just all about documents that President Trump has indicated were 100% declassified.
Yeah, well, and that's the big question here is, like, he's openly come out and said that, and because he said that, because he had them, the president really, it's almost impossible for him to violate any type of classification procedures because he is the classification. But I want to get into privilege, and I got about a minute left for you to break down all this stuff. Executive privilege, attorney-client privilege. Now, if I talk to my lawyer and I say, I like to wear women's shoes in the bathroom, or whatever, that is protected. However, if someone seizes those documents, gives them to, I don't know, CNN, and they run with it, the damage is done. What do you do at that point?
Yeah, and this is what's so frustrating about these continued leaks, because not
That's what I
only
was thinking
have,
of too.
executive privilege been undermined through the leaks, even through what has been compelled, for example, by the January 6th committee, and people turning this over to Congress, who then, it appears, has leaked to the media, then ultimately those privileges have been undermined. But this is all about the fact that the sacrosanct nature of attorney-client privilege, as well as a president while in office, to be able to talk to his senior advisors without worrying that his predecessor will come in and undermine all of his confidential communications, those are normal standards here. But Donald Trump is always the person who is never treated the same as every other president and every other citizen, by the way, in the United States. So no one is above the law, but Donald Trump is not below the law either. And there is just no crime here that I have seen in anything of this affidavit that would justify this type of unprecedented right.
That may be the quote of the day. He's not above the law, but he's not below it either.
Man,